Welcome into Purple Daily. Phil Mackey, Judd Zolgad, and Declan Goff.
Reckless speculation.
And it's been a little while since free agency has mostly grinded to a halt. The NFL draft was several weeks ago at this point, and so there really hasn't been anything to recklessly speculate about until now.
Reckless speculation.
You guys ready for a little reckless speculation?
Oh, yeah.
Missed it.
Fire up the reckless speculation.
Been lonely.
wagon. So this report comes out from a couple different spots here. There's an article written by Field Yates, ESPN.com, and then I'm getting this from boltsbeat.com. There are two reasons why Desmond King is a candidate to be traded this season. Desmond King, slot cornerback, 25 years old with the Chargers the last 3 years, heading into his fourth season, fifth-round pick, and a guy who, as of 2 years ago, was actually one of the better slot cornerbacks in the NFL. We'll get to some of that. But there's two reasons why King is a candidate to be traded this season. First, with the addition of Chris Harris, who is seemingly going to play slot corner whenever he can, and an already deep secondary, the Chargers can afford to trade King, who may take a lesser role after a bad season compared to his 2018 campaign. The second reason is King is in the last year of his rookie contract, so not only is he a free agent after the year, with so many other free agents he might not get re-signed by the Chargers, he's also a cheap option for teams to pursue, as he will not cost his potential new team a lot in cap space this year or dead cap to the Chargers. Also, adding to the reckless speculation pile,
Reckless speculation.
Jaleel Johnson, college teammate of Desmond King, tweeted out eyeball emojis plus the letters DK on Twitter, and Desmond King liked the tweet.
Oh, boy.
Liked the tweet.
Reckless speculation.
The opposite of the Stefon Diggs situation from a few months ago.
No,
What does it all mean?
I think we know what this means. It means that the Vikings are one of the teams rumored to be at least having conversations with the Chargers about Desmond King. So, Judd, how do you feel about Desmond King and the Vikings? And just to add another layer to this, Field Yates is speculating it would cost Riley Reif, that the swap would be starting cornerback for starting left tackle.
Is that his suggestion or his thought? Like I
think it's
tell,
an educated piece of speculation.
Right. I can't tell if Field was told this by people he knows in the business that this possibility exists, or if this is him trying to put pieces together or not. I love when reckless speculation meets a puzzle that fits together and makes some sense.
Sure.
And this is that. I love this, and I think that I don't know if the Chargers, who I do believe have a project left tackle who they like, I don't know if they would want Reif, but let's go back to what Rick Spielman has a lot of draft picks. He's got and he once traded a fifth-round pick for a kicker, okay? So he will trade them. It's not like he won't. First round, second round, it's definitely going to be more difficult to pry those away. But if we're talking about a fourth or fifth round or sixth round pick or a couple of picks, he will trade them. I love the idea of cost-controlled last year of his rookie contract, Desmond King coming in and day one playing in the slot, and now Mike Hughes can move outside potentially. The Vikings, as we've talked about and speculated, if they would go out and sign, a guy on the market, a veteran, the Vikings need help at the cornerback position. This provides that. And if the cost is, let's say, a fifth-round pick, I love this. Do it. Worst case, it's okay, and he walks, after the 2020 season. But best case, it works. He signs here. The Vikings need a guy like this. And if you have Desmond King on opening day of training camp, it at least provides you a little bit more stability with a veteran player, and that's something that when it comes to the cornerback positions, you really don't have now.
Also, on that front, I'm in for a draft pick as well. I think the discussion about trading Riley Reif, your current starting left tackle, warrants more flushing out here. But in terms of what the Vikings have salary cap space-wise, they have about $7 million we sort of project when all the figures come out and all of their draft picks have been signed. They haven't officially signed all 15 yet, right? So we're still trying to figure out where all that money slots in.
I don't think they've signed one. It might be like one right now.
So we kind of know like what the slots are, but
sure.
So it sounds like about $7 million, and the cap hit for 2020 for Desmond King is only $2.2 million. So there's no question you'd be able to fit him in underneath the salary cap, which is good. If it's like a fourth or a fifth round pick for a starting caliber slot cornerback who, as recently as 2 years ago, was top 10 or around top 10 in almost every meaningful slot cornerback category, according to Pro Football Focus. If Zimmer can get that guy back, and I have faith that he can, I'm in for it. If you're talking about trading your starting left tackle, an offensive line with Riley Reif is a big question mark for the Vikings.
Right.
Are you taking away from something that's really important to pay something that's really important, which is your cornerback pool? I just feel like offensive line and cornerback are the two areas of biggest need for the Vikings right now. And I don't know if you would be moving the needle as a team if you're trading your starting left tackle. He's not a superstar, but he's a solid starting left tackle for a slot cornerback. I would need some more convincing on that front.
And if you traded Reif and Cleveland steps in day one and let's say struggles,
who do you
that's
turn
Kirk's
to?
blind side. That's a bad idea. You've got enough draft picks that trading one or two is not going to kill you. In fact, if you really want, you could probably get one or two back. But this is the type of move that I think they have to make. And it might be King, it might not be. But I still don't see how you can start the season with a cornerback depth chart that is so young and depleted. And if you go out and get a slot corner type of guy and Hughes kicks outside, and, perhaps Gladney can start, on the first day. I don't love that idea, but it's a possibility. But I do think it gives you a little bit more now depth. And to your point, King's play was solid in 2017. It was solid in 2018. It dropped off in 19. But that's where Zim is good, right? Zim has had great success in taking guys and improving their craft. And so this all, to me, if you do have designs on being a good team in 2019, and I think, or in 20, I do think that the Vikings do, this to me is the type of move that you say, okay, I'm not surprised, it makes sense, and it cost you, again, let's say a fifth-round draft pick.
I just feel like the draft pick conversation has probably already been on the table. Like, if you're the Vikings, you need a cornerback. You've got... Going into the draft, you needed a cornerback, and you had all these draft picks, and then you wound up, trading and spinning to get 15 total players. I just feel like the conversation about draft pick comp has probably already taken place. And this is just my educated guess. The Chargers have been the ones that have said, "All right, well, we either need something more, or you're starting left tackle because we're trying to compete in 2022."
Fifth-round pick's
right?
pretty good. Fifth-round pick's a pretty good pick.
I agree. Totally agree.
Take the fifth-round pick.
As far as what happened in 2019, so according to Pro Football Focus, Desmond King allowed a 114.5 passer rating in the slot, which is not very good. That's like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning's best seasons for all 16 games against you as a slot cornerback. And he was sort of middle of the pack if you want to go even deeper into the stat bag here. They track yards per snap allowed and receptions per snap allowed, and he was more middle of the pack in those categories, so it wasn't as big of a train wreck last year. In all three of those categories, he was much better in 2018 and 17. And I think if age were a factor, if he was like 31 years old and you saw that kind of a drop-off, I think it's much more of a gamble, because then the question would be, all right, has he lost a step? Is speed an issue? Is quickness an issue? He's 25 years old. He's still in the middle of his physical prime, right?
Like Rhodes just dropped off the table,
right? Or if there was some sort of like debilitating injury that wiped out his knee or something, but none of those things are true.
But this is Zim's bag, right? I mean, this is what he does.
Yes,
he takes corners and helps them.
Yeah, in fact, this would be the exact profile of player. And again, I'm not looking to trade a starting offensive lineman for him, but if it's a draft pick and I get Mike Zimmer and all of his cornerback tutelage and knowledge and expertise, I would bet a lot of money on Desmond King riding the wave back up and riding his stock back up. And then you can figure out what the contract looks like,
and then
or
he gets paid
if you want to pay him or not. But imagine going into the season right now and Mike Hughes being your most established and credible cornerback, and we don't know a lot of, well, he's a first-round pick and he's shown some flashes, but we don't know a lot about what he can do as the guy.
And he's also been hurt a lot.
Right, but Desmond King would be instantly the most credible, and I would say experienced cornerback in your bag, and you wouldn't then have to rely on Gladney necessarily to step in right away. Right?
I think is
Holton Hill could start.
Yes, and if you put Gladney in day one, sink or swim, I think that's a terrible idea, because I'll go back to, I think cornerbacks are players that you can ruin.
Yeah,
I've seen it. Like if you put a guy in and you're like, all right, go play, and he starts to get torched, and if you're going down a QB list that the Vikings are going to go down on their schedule for the upcoming year, it's a tough one, and now he's completely lost his confidence, have problems there. There is a chance to ruin him. I would far prefer to trade a 5th-round pick to get a guy to plug in to at least give those young guys time to progress more instead of saying, day one, go to it. I think that's a big mistake.
Reckless speculation.
So
It's a puzzle, right, though?
Yeah,
it's a puzzle. It makes sense. The pieces fit together here.
it makes sense, and it also makes sense that the Vikings would have a full understanding of what their weaknesses are and would have a couple irons in the fire here. And it's just like there's really no reason for on June 29th. Like the next deadline is training camp. So if something didn't get done before the draft, if something didn't get done right after the draft, I think the next deadline is as training camp starts to approach. So the Vikings probably have a couple points in mind where, all right, we would do this, we wouldn't do this, and now they're just sort of waiting for the next deadline. I would be shocked if they didn't add a veteran cornerback, either Desmond King or one of the remaining free agents that's sitting out there. And that pool has thinned out a lot in the last month and a half or so. But I would, if it's a draft pick, I'm in. If it's Riley Reif, I'm not.
Do the
fully
Chargers
convinced,
really want him, though? Because then there's a big contract to pick up. The Vikings, I think, would have to pay part of that contract.
The Vikings would have to pay like $3 or $4 million
A
to
Reif
even out.
trade to me, if you're the Chargers, seems like a lot of work.
Well,
I think I'd take the pick, and I did read where they have a left tackle who I think might have been on their practice squad at one point, who they do like. I'm just thinking the trade would be a lot cleaner to give them a draft pick, perhaps 2 of them.
yeah,
and
this
be
is
done
this
with
is the
it.
logic Rick Spielman's probably spewing on the phone right now. Listen, just take one of our
You think
9
he spews
7th round
logic?
picks, and
You think he spews? This is a lot of logic. Listen, Chargers, damn it.
listen, just give us this guy who was terrible last year. I believe the Vikings. I'd have to go pull up Riley Reif's contract, but the money that you would owe to the cap is much more in 2020 than 21. So if you're the Chargers, you could in theory get out from underneath Reif's contract and just have cap space too. So
I love speculation of the reckless nature.
it is great.
You want reckless speculation?
You know this ain't gonna happen.
How about reckless trade speculation?
For the love of God!
All right. Well, we'll see where the Desmond King discussions go from here, but
Well, we'll keep them alive.
absolutely we
Now
will.
that they've started, we'll keep them alive.
Yes. That's a wrap on this episode of Purple Daily. Thanks for hanging out with us, and please be sure to give us a positive review on Apple if you listen on that platform, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ScoreNorth.